Hi, I am Dr. Kim Sage. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. Welcome to my YouTube channel and to this series called What is My Trauma Type? Within a little larger series called Wildly Loved. All of this is meant to help you understand how your trauma brain, the brain that you had to develop basically all of your adaptations in childhood, how we're often still living from that space without any real awareness. And so the goal of this series is to help us understand more and more about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what might help to heal and change our lives and relationships. If you're new here, really quickly, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell, and that way you'll get notified when I post new videos. And please check out my amazing, I think it's amazing, I worked so hard on it, but it really is about sort of everything I know as a clinician and also as a child of emotional abuse and wounds and parents who really struggled with borderline and narcissism and the combos, really often untreated generationally. And so the goal of those courses also, there's one on remothering yourself. I'm doing a remothering in the kitchen series right now on TikTok, where we're about to go into those of us who were raised by certain parents who either the kitchen wasn't safe or food wasn't safe, or we don't know how to cook for ourselves, or we have anxiety in the kitchen and don't know why. And so I'm going to just be doing things that I love on TikTok, talking about how to be in the kitchen. I'm not a chef, but I love to cook, and always incorporating trauma-based concepts with each video. And I hope that whatever you do, you will just take some time to work on healing your heart and your life. I have just even a list of great books I recommend on my website, so please feel free to check those out. Today's video is just finishing up the series on my trauma type part, where we went through fight, flight, freeze, fawn, collapse and submit, and attach, cry out for help. So please check out those videos if you want to learn more and kind of get caught up. But for today, we're going to go into the hybrids, the combo types, based off of those main types, because most of us have some combination, right? We really use all of them at different times, most likely. But those of us who have a more complex childhood, we kind of get stuck and we have our go-tos more often. We don't kind of flow and move through them. So we're going to talk today and tomorrow about these combo types, what Pete Walker calls hybrids in this book, as I keep saying, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. Now, it's important to remember too that the way Pete sets it up is whatever word you use first, like that is the first position that dominates the hybrid, like fight, fawn. So fight would be more of the overarching concept with the fawn dynamic. So I'll explain it in a second. So really the first word, if that makes sense, is your first go-to, and the second is like a more combo backup, and they kind of can shape each other. But if you flip the words, they're not the same, even the exact same words. So fight, fawn is not the same, for example, as fawn, fight. Okay? So the first one is fight, fawn, and in this one, Pete Walker talks about it being a very sort of narcissistic lens. He's often called it the charming bully. And the reason why the charming part comes in is because that fawn part knows how to, maybe be a flatterer or groveler or try to take care of other people. But it can feel like manipulation, and it can be at the hands of someone who has really made an adaptation about getting their way through, demanding behavior, through controlling behavior, exploitative behavior. And so he does talk about how that can get misperceived as borderline, and that it's important to really understand the nuances and differences. And also we're understanding a lot more about borderline, which does have both childhood and trauma roots and genetic links, very strong genetic links. The closer you are in your family to someone with BPD, the more likely you may be to have it. Does not mean that you will, it just means that there is a genetic component that's pretty strong. But basically what happens in this one, the fight is dominant, right? The narcissistic, get your needs met, go check out this video for fight if you're not really clear on what I'm saying. That is the dominant one. And so when the fawning comes in, like I said, it can really feel manipulative, to be honest. And, remember that all of these we're doing to survive. So even if this is you, it doesn't mean that you're a narcissist or a bad person. It means that there's something that you're using to deal with life's difficulties that is probably not serving you, right? Because in many regards, you're kind of looking at life through this lens of your own and only your own. And then he also talks about it could be split between where a person could, let's say, be a fight type, let's say, at home, and be really, just super aggressive, like as a parent, but then, kind of tiptoe around the boss, or be the boss who's kind of terrible, and then fawn over a very unstable, emotionally volatile partner and enable them, basically. The next one is the flight freeze response. And Pete says this is the least relational, and because basically what's happening is in the flight stage, we're going and doing and thinking about doing to avoid dealing with our intimacy fears, our vulnerability. And if we're freezing, that can also isolate. We can isolate from other people. And so people that have this pattern, this flight freeze, tend to want to isolate, tend to be, go and do, and then kind of shut down. And he talks about they can be misdiagnosed on the autism spectrum. I'm not sure if that's, been researched or not, but this pattern would make sense. This way that it presents could be definitely like, is that a social, emotional issue, or is that a social cue issue? What is going on? And so they often avoid potential relationships because they don't want to be re-traumatized. And so they use this, what he calls obsessive compulsive dissociation two-step. So they're, being and doing and all of that, and then dissociating and removing themselves. And that goes in and out and in and out. The way I've talked about it in some ways is that being in a flight pattern where you're on and then you're off, which is something I've struggled with, which I think is, as I've said, I think also very autoimmune related. And autoimmune diseases, as we know, can very strongly be related to childhood trauma. And so basically what you do is you go and do, and then the minute you can't do anymore, you kind of just completely shut down. Maybe you binge watch TV or something, or you play video games. But the minute the energy returns, you're back up to being and doing. And so there's a lot of risks supposedly in this one around, addictions to things that help us space out, whether it's, watching something on your streaming service or video gaming, things like that, shopping. But if you think about flight, and then the flip side, it is like an on and off switch, what's happening. And the off switch can often look like isolation, removing yourself from others. The next one is the fight freeze. And so this is a person who Pete says rarely seeks help on their own. They're often a passive or covert narcissist. Remember, fight still has that narcissistic flavor to it. And that they demand things go their way with very little tolerance for imperfection. They're basically this sort of, quiet type, but beneath the surface, there's all this going on. It can feel very unsettling because it's like they're presenting a certain way, that kind of frozen state, but you can feel the fight underneath. And they might be actually cranky and have bad moods, it might also play out that way. But the bottom line is you've got basically an isolating behavior paired with a dominant, narcissistic, exploitative, more controlling behavior. And so that's what that one looks like. Now, let's talk quickly about something Pete calls the continuums of positive and negative 4F responses. Remember, the 4F is the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, the main ones that Pete talks about. And that there is a spectrum, as I discussed in this video, around the positive qualities that we're so focused on, these trauma types and what we do, but we might be losing sight of, but within that, there's some jewels, some nuggets, some strength in there that we don't want to let go of. We just don't want it to be our go-to dominant response. And so we have on one end, let's say, a flight. If you think about flight, on the really healthy end, it's assertiveness. And if you think about a continuum, at the unhealthy or less, I don't even like the word healthy, but the less helpful response would be bullying, right? So we would want to lean into the assertiveness, not so much the bullying. On the flight continuum, we have efficiency, so we get things done, right? We know how to make things happen. But the extreme end of that is drivenness. And I would say drivenness to the point where you sacrifice your relationships, your health, everything that really should also be important is kind of left by the wayside, because that achievement and doing and always being, driven just takes all the air out of the room and your life in some ways. The freeze on the one end is peacefulness, right? It's peaceful and I can connect and slow down and be mindful. And the extreme end is catatonia, which is completely, basically not present at all. And then fawn, on the one end, helpfulness, being helpful and taking some joy in that, but not coming at all costs to your own well-being, to servitude, where it is really your job to just always take care of everyone else and to serve them at your own expense. And so those are really what he talks about in terms of those first hybrids. And we're going to talk a little bit tomorrow about the other few hybrids left that are really driven by the fawn response. And so I hope I will see you then. I'm curious to hear if you think you have combos or sort of this hybrid type, what they might be. And I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Please stay safe and well, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys.